and in customs and traditions which everybody would like to learn. Like everything else, we know that it's important to be prepared, especially when we speak about the seder, the night of the seder. This is the night which puts us all into seder. Seder means order. It organizes us, reminding us who we are and where we are heading to. And like we always say, Akol Beseder. You know the story of Akol Beseder. In Israel, they respond when you ask them how you doing. They respond it's usually Akol Beseder, which usually it means all is good. But there's a little secret and insight here that Akol, everything is also depending on the Seder. The way a person conducts himself during the Seder of the night of Pesach is going to be married. He's going to marry to live a meaningful life throughout the year following Pesach. We are starting the Seder usually by displaying in front of us the Haggadah, which is an interesting name, Haggadah. Usually we know the Siddur, which we could have also called it Seder or Siddur Pesach. Or we have the Megillah, very nice. So we said, like, just on calling it on Purim Megillas Esther, it would have been nice to call it Megillat Yetziat Mitzrayim, the Megillah which relates the story of the Exodus. But nevertheless, our sages refer to it with the title Haggadah, which all the ideas that is being mentioned in the Haggadah relates to the very important and critical verse in the Torah regarding the Passover holiday, which says what? Veigadeta lebincha. You should tell it to your children. So this is the night that we are told to tell. And that's why the name of the book, which was composed by our sages, is also called the Haggadah, based on the word Veigadeta. As the Rambam describes in the 7th chapter of the laws of Chometz Umatzah, the Rambam says, Mitzvahs asay shel Torah, there is a biblical positive commandment, lesaper benisim beniflois, shenasu la'aviseinu b'mitzrayim, beleil chamisha orsa benisim. The mitzvah is to relate the wonders and miracles which happened to our ancestors in Egypt on this night, the night of the 15th of Nisan, and he quotes the pasuk, the verse, "Veigadeta lebincha," to tell it to your kids. Specifically, there's a mitzvah to tell it, to inform it to them, and even if they did not ask any questions, we should tell them the story of the Haggadah, as the Rambam says, "Veigadeta lebincha." So that's why the name of the book is called what? Haggadah. And the sages actually created all kinds of techniques in the Haggadah to make sure that the story is related properly. And the first and most important technique is to organize the story of the Exodus from Egypt in a manner of question and answer. She'ela v'tshuva, ma nishtana, to ask. As we all know, that the most effective way for somebody to remember something is when he asks a question and you give him an answer. An answer to a question ensures that the message will be everlasting rather than just relating a message. And that is also the reason that we do all kinds of unusual changes into the evening gathering, so to speak. And the changes are, as the Rambam also continues in chapter 7, and he says, צריך לעשות שינוי בלילה הזה, we have to make changes. What's the purpose of those changes? כדי שיראו הבנים וישאלו. So the children are going to see those unusual behaviors and they're going to ask, מה נשתנו הלילה הזה מכל הלילות? Ask questions. When a child asks a question, then you know that he has interest in listening. That's what questions represent. And you know, those who have kids know already by now that usually you would like, welcome, make yourself at home. It's okay. Usually you like that your oldest child should probably be, my oldest child is sitting here. So you like the oldest child to behave in the best way possible. So you should be able to tell the rest of the kids, you know, look who you can follow. If he's a good boy, they're all going to follow him. And if one of the children is not completely behaving properly, so what do we tell him? Look, the older brother was always behaving so nicely. Why can't you do it? So this is what the tendency of parents are. But the Agada teaches us that this is not true. There are 4 children, and not one is similar or identical to the other. It is the wise boy who we need to explain more because he really wants to know more. And it is the other boy who doesn't even ask questions, he just mocks the whole matter, and he needs a different response. And the one who doesn't know how to express himself needs a different response. And the one who doesn't even know that there is a question needs a different response. Everything is to relate to every child in his own way and to do it differently. And many things tonight are specifically done in a way to keep the children curious, including, it's not a Chabad custom, but there is the concept of having the children steal the afikoman. They take it away from you. And then you have to promise them something to get it back. Because that's how children work. And if that's how children work, we are going to utilize their own ways of life in order to deliver to them that message. So now, let's get into the seder. Ladies and gentlemen, assume that we are all sitting by a seder now. We're going to go through the actual practices of the seder, but I want to start by first understanding this date, the 14th of Nisan, the night of the 15th of Nisan. What are we doing here? We are obviously coming to celebrate Pesach. So it's important to recognize that Chag Pesach, the holiday of Pesach, is the first in the list of holidays that the Jewish people had accepted as a nation. Matter of fact, it's considered the most important one. This is what forms and establishes the Jewish identity, which we call in Hebrew Zehut Yehudit, is being established on this night, the night of Pesach. In the Torah, we find many times the idea that we should do certain things to remember that we left Egypt. Matter of fact, we have a mitzvah in the Torah, Leman tizkor et yom tzedcha me'eretz Mitzrayim kol yemei chayecha. We have a mitzvah to remember every single day that we left Egypt. Not only that we left Egypt, meaning as a nation, but as the Mishnah teaches us, and it's qualified in the Rambam, that in each and every generation, a person has to see himself as if he had left Egypt. Bechol dor vador, in every generation, we say it actually in the Agada, chayav adam, a person is obligated lirot et atzmo, to see himself keilu hu yatsa mitzrayim, as if he personally left Egypt. And why is it so important? Why is it so important to look at ourselves? Why can't we just celebrate Pesach that our ancestors left Egypt? and as Zaidi and Bobby left Egypt, it would also be a great reason to celebrate. Why is it so important to look at it as if we are the ones who left Egypt? So this is something which is being explained a lot in Chassidut, that the whole idea and the centrality of the exodus of Egypt is that this expresses what is life all about. What does it mean? What life is all about? Yetzias Mitzrayim is not something which happened and was, because Mitzrayim is not only a location, a geographical location. Mitzrayim, explains Hasidus, comes from a term in Hebrew called Meitzar. Meitzar means boundaries. Meitzar means limitations, blockages, which doesn't let you express yourself, experience what you need to experience. It doesn't let you to be what you really should be or what you really want to be. And that's the whole idea of Mitzrayim. When we say in the Agada, anytime we talk about the word Mitzrayim, we're talking about all kinds of tendencies, addictions, thoughts, expressions, places that we are kind of tied to in a way that it dominates our lives. And we can't see ourselves getting out of it. It's kind of controlling us. Comes the Torah and tells you it's not true. Remember, I took you out of Egypt. You have the ability, not only the ability, the obligation to see yourself out of all these limitations, to be who you really are. You are Yid with a neshama, with a godly soul that streams godly energy, and therefore you can let yourself out from all these limitations, and that's why Yetzias Mitzrayim is such an important holiday. This holiday has a number of names. Perhaps it can come up with 5 names the way the holiday is being referred to. We call it in the Torah. What's the name for this holiday in the Torah? Chag HaMatzot, the holiday of Matzah. That's the way the Torah refers to this holiday. Not Pesach, not freedom. Chag HaMatzot Azeh. Why? Because we ate matzah when we left Egypt. How do the Jewish people call this holiday? Chag HaPesach, the holiday of Pesach. Why? Pesach means skipping over, reminding ourselves that God skipped over the houses of the Jews in Egypt. What is it called in the prayer book? We say, "Vatite lanu Hashem Elokeinu ba'ava et yom chag hamatzot hazeh zman cheiruteinu." You gave us the holiday of matzahs, the season of our freedom. We became free. We left Egypt. So it's a third name. Pesach, matzahs, and Zman Cherutenu. People refer to it also as Chag HaAviv. Aviv in Hebrew means spring, because this is a holiday which happens in the month of spring. Matter of fact, this year, for example, is a leap year. We have an extra additional month. We had an extra month to the month of Adar. And the main reason is that Pesach should actually land in the month of spring and not earlier. And it's also Chag HaGeula, the holiday of redemption, because we were redeemed, and as the Medrash says, "Benisan negalu, ubenisan atidin neigael." We were redeemed in the month of Nisan, and we are intended to be redeemed by Mashiach Tzidkenu in the month of Nisan. So this is the way the holiday is called. Obviously, in the different geographic Jewish communities, they also added different titles. We have over here in Bellevue, Caucasian Jew, Mountain Jew. I visited a number of them on Sunday, giving them matzah. You know what they call Pesach? Nisoni. Very good. Nisoni. They said in the Persian kind of expression, Nisoni. And Nisoni comes from the month of Nisan, obviously. So that's how they call it, Nisoni. Iraqians call it Shatahi. Shatahi. Oh, why Shatahi? It comes actually from the Aramaic word, Ashatahachi. Now we are here. And next year in Israel, so they actually call this holiday Shatachi. From the word in Olach Ma'anya, we say Ashatachi. So they call it Ashatachi. In English, obviously, what is it known as? Passover. The famous great Hasidic master, the Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, writes in his book, Kedushat Levi, he says something very beautiful. He says that the name of Matzot by God, which is in the Torah, and the name Pesach by the Jews actually represents a dialogue between the Jewish people and God. What's a dialogue? Each one is bringing out the best of the other. So what was the best part of the Jewish people in this whole story? That they trusted God and they were ready to live a country without having even preservatives for the road. They had no sandwiches. I sent off my son and daughter-in-law today to Argentina, my Sheyona. He went to be with his in-laws. He came into my house 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm waiting for me to pick him up to the airport. And Mrs. Farkash is preparing 6 bagels and cream cheese and lox. Why? Because he's going on a long journey. So he needs to have what to eat along the way. That's the normal way, No, you're on a plane, you're gonna get stuck somewhere, have a long late layover. So it's a long road to, like David knows, it's not an easy way to get to Argentina. So Mrs. Farkash stood like a normal, nice mother and prepared them sandwiches for the road. And when we left Egypt, there was no sandwiches. No one made sandwiches for us. We took and not even grabbed them. We grabbed dough and we started running. What are you going to eat? Trusted God. So what is the name that God is referring to this holiday? It says the Holy Berditchever. God says, this is what I want to name this holiday. That which represents your devotion to me, your faith, your emunah, are ready to leave Egypt without even knowing what and how you're going to sustain yourself. So he calls it Chag HaMatzot. What is the way we call it? We express our love to God. What do we say? You know what the great part of the holiday was? That you, God, hello, welcome. You know what the great part of the holiday was? That you, God, had skipped over the homes of the firstborn in Egypt. So you expressed your love to us by making sure that you don't get stuck along the way in a house which you don't belong to. So God calls it Chag HaPesach, the holiday of Passover, skipping over the homes. I'm sorry, the Jewish people call it Passover because that's how we realize and that's how we express our excitement about the holiday. And God says, I'm more excited to see the way you left Egypt with your unripe dough. I'm going to call it Chag HaMatzot, the holiday of matzah. So that's the reason for this name. And obviously, when it comes to Pesach night, the expectation is that we should feel as we are freed. Like I said before, freed from your limitations, freed from your boundaries. I was just speaking this afternoon to someone who is dealing with a difficult issue of a child stuck in Europe, doesn't want to come home, whatever. And I felt that the child is maybe being a little abusive to the father by schlepping along this type of situation. It's a little too long and too much. And I told the father, you know what? Let go. Let go. What do you mean let go? Give it some time. Concentrate on your own life. You paid already enough of your health and your personal livelihood to help the child who somehow doesn't want to be helped. The child's not a baby. It's older than 30. Let it take care of itself. And when they need you, they're going to call you back. He said, how am I going to do it? I gave him matzah. I said, you know what? Monday night, you're going to sit them at the table and you're going to eat this matzah. You're going to have something in mind. It's a technique which allows us to meditate about something important. What am I going to meditate about? I'm going to meditate about freedom. So that's going to be your story of freedom. Anyway, the idea is that Pesach night we are actually pretending to be free people. How do you pretend to be a free person? So in the olden days, it was very obvious. The slave never had a chance to eat while leaning, where the master was able to lean. So that's how the sages introduced the idea that the important eating parts of tonight, the seder night, should be eaten as a free man. So when you drink the 4 cups of wine, which is a part of the obligation of the seder experience, you're going to drink it while you lean. When you eat the first part of your matzah, you're also going to lean. Why would you lean? Because tonight I'm a person that I have all the time in the world and no one is on top of me and I can lean and relax. And that's the way I express freedom. Matter of fact, I can tell you, according to Jewish law, if you drink the wine, there's 4 cups, and you ate matzah without leaning, I have to redo it. Okay? Which shows you only that this is not just a simple custom, which if you like, you do, and if you feel free in heart, it's also good. You must express that freedom mainly in the way that you will actually lean physically when you eat. There were different communities which they had a custom that on Pesach night they used to display on the table all the expensive dishes they have, things that you usually keep in what do you call it? In Hebrew they call it the vitrina. You leave it in the china closet. The vault. The vault. You also used to bring out on the table to show that I own a lot and I am here. My friend Avram, I always say when they came from summer camp 30 years ago, I don't know how much thing they brought with them from there, but they brought their special dishes and many times coming to their house of his parents, a blessed memory, to have the china closet. This is the Passover beautiful display dishes which they used to eat from and drink from in honor of this day. They say that I once heard that in the town of Lubavitch in Russia, there were 2 Jewish thieves. They were known to be the Ganovim, the thieves of the community. One is named was Shaul, one is named was Shlomo. And the story says that on Passover, they said on Passover we never steal. Shabbat they never stole, but especially on Passover we never steal. What do we do on Passover? We just go visit the house. We visit to know what to do next. But on Passover they never stole. Anyway, let's start the Seder. Ready for the Seder? I think it's 8 o'clock. Let's go to the Seder. We have a half hour. We're going to get organized so we know everything that we need to do. So first of all, you see I put a tablecloth over here on the table. And the reason I did that, because I wanted to show that with a simple fold of a tablecloth, you can create a triple fold, because we are going to need a triple fold for the Seder. You see, I just folded and I had 1 compartment, a second compartment, and a third compartment. In these 3 compartments, we are going to place 3 matzah. The Seder is made by 3 matzah, and every matzah serves its own specific purpose. And the matzahs were actually given names. They're given names. We are the Jewish people. Have three segments. We have the Kohanim, a Kohen, a priest. We have the Levites, and we have the Israelites, which is 99% of the Jews are the regular unleaded, right? Regular Israelite. So when we come to the seder, we begin by placing first one matzah, and you see it's a handmade matzah. It is round because the Torah calls it ugot matzot. Ugot means cakes, matzah cakes. The traditional cakes are circled and round. So we put one, and then in his own compartment. Then we take a second one, which is the Levi, and we put it in the second compartment. And then we have another one, a third one, which is the Kohen, and we put him in his own compartment. So now you have three matzahs, the Israel, Levi, Kohen, one on top of the other that we're going to use in different ways during the Seder.
You have
First,
you
what?
have to put in the first one on the bottom, or can you put the first one on top, or
Better according to the Kabbalah, even the Kohen is usually the more significant one, the one who gets greater honor because he's a priest, he's a Kohen. But the Kabbalah says that the whole message of the Seder is that we are traveling from downward upward. We're leaving Egypt. So when you start from the bottom up, you pretend that you are climbing the ladder. Matter of fact, the three words Israel in Hebrew starts with the letter Yud. Levi starts with the letter Lamed. And Cohen starts with the letter Chaf, which the Yud and the Lamed and the Chaf make up the word Yelech. Yelech means payachal. You're going, you're traveling, you're walking. And that's matter of fact, the whole idea of tonight is that we are walking out of the limitations, we're walking out of Egypt. We're going to have three matzah, and when the Seder starts, all three matzahs are there. And then over these three matzah, we are going to organize a Seder plate. The Seder plate is like the wood Seder, means order, which is going to organize us the night. On the right side of the Seder plate, we are going to first put some bitter herbs. No, I'm sorry. Here you have, on the right side of the Seder plate, we're going to put a small piece of broiled chicken. Some put a neck of a chicken. What is your custom?
Lamb.
What part of the lamb? The shank of the lamb. Okay, we broil it, and it's placed on the right side. This is just for a commemoration. What are we commemorating? In the times of the temple, there was a main service during the Passover holiday called the Paschal sacrifice, when we used to bring a lamb, offer it in the temple, and every single Jew, man, woman, and child was eating a piece of meat. Sounds good, no? Barbecued, not cooked. It was broiled. And that barbecued piece of lamb we don't have today because we have no temple. But we do display it to remind us what we are missing. That goes on the right upper side of the Seder plate. In the times of the temple, there was also another offering that was brought as a festive offering. It's a holiday. And we are also displaying something on the plate to remind us about the second offering. That's what the egg represents. Why an egg? So one of the main reasons is that the Paschal sacrifice could have only be eaten broiled. The festival offering, you can eat either cooked or broiled or barbecued or baked or roasted. So therefore, we want to make a distinguished difference between the two offerings. So we put a cooked boiled egg to say this one could be cooked, but the other one has to be roasted meat. There's other reasons why we eat an egg, which some people actually eat the egg later at the beginning of the meal. And this has to do mainly, which is interesting, that the egg is the food of a mourner. God forbid, when someone loses a loved one, the first meal on the way back from the cemetery in Jewish tradition, we offer him a hard-boiled egg. And the reason is because a hard-boiled egg is round, a round dish. And this is kind of symbolizing the story of life. Person came to life, and the circle began circling, and then it came to an end, but then life continues. And this is the story of the circle of life. Why are we mourners? On Passover, we are not mourners, we are happy people. But first of all, it tells us that we were in Egypt, and then we came out of Egypt, so we are circling like the egg, right? But also, when we sit at the Seder night here, and we realize that the world is not complete. It's not complete by the definition that we have no temple, but all the other things which happens in today's world is all side effects from the fact that we have no temple. And therefore, it is important to have an egg to remind us how we can turn out and circle away from the challenges by the coming of Mashiach. Okay, so we have the right and the left. In the middle comes now bitter herbs that we later going to eat by the Seder. The bitter herbs is usually lettuce. Some people actually also have horseradish. It's either horseradish or lettuce. In Chabad, the custom is to have both. The Rebbe used to take a soup spoon of horseradish, then another soup spoon of horseradish, then another one, 3 or 4 of them, and then create like a ball in your hand of that sizable amount of horseradish. That was horseradish which was grounded. But then he took a piece of live horseradish, piece of the horseradish of the root, and stick it into the bowl of the grounded horseradish, and cover it with 2 or 3 lettuce, kind of wrap it in it, and that's how he used to eat the moror. That was the moror. And it wasn't easy, but he did it. Okay, we go back to the corner on the right. We're going to have the famous charoset. Charoset is the sweet dish, which is actually very ironic that in one end, that sweet dish is meant to look like mortar, which reminds us of the bricks that we were enslaved by Pharaoh. That's why we do like a mix of apples and dates and figs and walnuts, right? Trying to create like a texture which is like mortary kind, and yet it's sweet. The work in Egypt was not sweet, and the answer is very simple. How can you eat something sweet when you're trying to remember the bitterness? The answer is that it was that bitterness which got us to the greatest sweetness that we had. It's only because of the furnace that we spent in Egypt, it cleaned us and prepared us to receive the Torah, right? A few weeks after that, and to become the nation of Israel. So this is what you display on your right, because we are going to dip the maror, the bitter herbs is going to be dipped in that charoset. On the left, we are going to display the very wonder vegetable. And this is so interesting. It's called the karpas, right? And the karpas is just, some people use potato, celery, an onion, parsley, and you place it. What do you use for karpas in wooden wheel? Parsley. And what do they use in Samarkand?
Watergrass.
Watergrass. What is watergrass?
Watercress.
Watercress.
What is that?
It's
Very bitter.
kind of like a clover. It's
Oh,
more of a
okay.
clover flavor.
What did they used to use in your house, young man? Carpas, you remember? Potato. What do you used to use? Remember? What, what do you remember from carpas for you?
Green.
Something green. In Chabad, they use an onion. The Rebbe used to put a
Green onion or
the
just
Rebbe used to put a full
Regular
line,
onion.
no, a regular onion, and then cut out a little tiny piece. But the reason for that vegetable, we take it, we dip it in salt water. And the question is always, why are we doing it? And the why becomes the answer. The answer is why. Sometimes the question becomes the answer. It's a way to trigger the kids' attention that we do unusual thing. That's why this is going to be one of the first things for the seder. After Kiddush is going to be the eating of that little vegetable. Make a blessing Adama. So just to have in mind that it's a night to ask questions. And hopefully that by asking that question, the questions are going to come. So what happened to us and how did we become the people that we are? And we're going to go to the real story of the Exodus. But I saw a beautiful insight written one of the early commentators of the Rambam, Rabbi Mordechai. He says something very interesting. Listen to that. It's an original. He says that there are two times that we are dipping during the Seder night. We dip the karpas, the vegetable, in the salt water, and we dip the moror in the charoset, the bitter herbs in the charoset. So says Rabbeinu Manoach, let's think, what does these two deeps remind us? Where was the first time we have a story about a deep? In the Torah. That was in Yosef's brothers. Sold him to Egypt. And they took his coat, the beautiful coat, which was the source of the jealousy. What did they do with the coat? It says in the Chumash, Vayidbelu et akutonet badam. They dipped the coat in the blood, telling their father that Yosef was attacked by a bad animal, and he didn't make it out. That was the code that he sent to Jacob after they sold him to the Egyptians. This is the first time the Torah uses the term "itbelu," which means they immersed, they dipped. The second time is when we left Egypt. The night of the Exodus, God says you should take the the blood of the Paschal sacrifice. And you should do what? You should dip into it a what? Azov. What is Azov? Ispis. Right? A bundle of ispis. Dip into the blood and smear the doorposts of the homes. That becomes the identifying sign that here in Egypt, this is a Jewish home. That's what it is. So says Rabbeinu Manoach, and the Ben Ish Chai actually says it too. Very interesting. They say that the two deeps is to commemorate the original two deeps. With dipping karpas in salt water, to remember that what got us into Egypt was the dipping of Yosef's coat in blood. And then we make a second dip, more in Charoset, to remind us that what got us out of Egypt is when the bundle of Egypt was dipped in blood and identifying ourselves in Egypt as a Jewish home. Those two dips are the beginning which led us to Egypt and what took us out of Egypt. And that is what we are looking to remember on the night of Pesach.
Isn't there also the children that beside the dipping when we go and wash. That first washing.
Right. It's also, I'm going to mention it in a moment. It needs to be washed, it's also for that. Okay. So also now that you have the karpas on the left, the charosat on the right, we create yet another centerpiece for moror, that because there's going to be two times. Twice during the seder, we are going to use bitter herbs. We are going to use bitter herbs when we eat maror, when we eat the food to commemorate the bitterness of Egypt. And then we're going to eat another time of bitter herbs to commemorate how the bitter herbs was eaten during temple times as a sandwich of matzah and the pesach. So now that you have the plate organized, we are starting the seder. And again, what does seder mean in English? Order. Tonight, everything is done by order. So the order of the night begins like every Jewish holiday, like every Sabbath. What is the first thing we do? Kiddush. We declare the sanctification of the day. And being that this is the holiday of Passover, we are going to start also with Kiddush. But tonight's Kiddush is not just the regular Kiddush, it's a special Kiddush, being that tonight's Kiddush is one of the 4 cups of wine that every Jew, man and woman, are obligated to drink to commemorate the 4 different expressions of redemption that God told us before we left Egypt. If you remember, what did Hashem tell Moses before we left Egypt? He told them, I'm going to take you out of their enslavement. I'm going to rescue you. I'm going to redeem you. And I'm going to take you to me as a nation, which is 4 different expressions. Basically, the Jewish people were first slaves. And God decided to end their slavery. Ending the slavery does not mean that you are out of that government. It doesn't mean that you are not under their control. You are not enslaved anymore, but it doesn't mean you can go anywhere. So this is the first step, but not the ultimate step. This is called Vehotzeti. It deserves a cup of wine, but we are not done yet. Then God said, I'm going to rescue you from their control. Vehitzalti, that gets his uncut. Meaning I'm going to take you out of Egypt altogether. Not only you're not going to be a slave to Egypt, you're going to be get out of Egypt. Number 3, even if you're out of Egypt, they can still chase after you. They can still run after you, right? They can still try getting you. In order to get rid of that, what do you need to see? The Egyptians are gone. When did it happen? By the splitting of the sea. A week after the Exodus, right? The Jewish people crossed the Yam Suf, the Red Sea, and once we left, the Egyptians coming and chasing after us, and they drowned in that ocean. Now we know that there's no more fear of them running after us. But yet, the most important thing happened 7 weeks after the Exodus. When we stood at Sinai, and God decided to take us as His people by giving us the Torah. That's called Velakach. So each expression of redemption gets his own cup of wine. We always say, why wine? Why can't you have 4 cups of whatever drink Alicia likes to drink every Wednesday. What is it called?
Bye.
Huh?
Bye.
Bye. Why can't we have 4 cups of bye? And the answer is simple. Because the 4 expressions of redemption is showing a gradual enhancement of the previous stage of redemption. We moved upward. Not only that, but also that. Not only that, but even that. In that case, if you drink wine, the second cup of wine is not as tasty as the first, right? Especially if you were thirsty. And the third cup for sure not. What is the only drink that the more you drink from it, the more you feel? Wine. First cup is good, but the second cup, and the third cup, aha. And that's how you keep on going, right? Every cup makes it sound even better. And that's what the four expressions of redemption are. That each cup is more. Matter of fact, there's an interesting insight I saw here in a book, the son of Reb Levi Yitzchak Berditcher, famous Rabbi Yisrael. He says that actually the four cups represent the four matriarchs. And he says very interesting. He says like this. The first cup is our matriarch Sarah. What does Sarah have to do with Kiddush? He says because Sarah was the one, together with her husband Avram, who sanctified the world, who brought people close to God. What do we say by Kiddush every day? Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Am, you have chosen us from all nations. But this is a cup which relates to Sarah and her husband Avram. The second cup, which we say the Agada after, is representing Rivka. Because how does the Agada begin? The struggle of Jacob and whom? Laban. Right? That's how it starts. That Laban wanted to get rid of us. Who was Laban? Rivka's brother. Right? So the second cup, which teaches us actually coming from darkness, coming from a bad place like Egypt to become God's people, is the story of Rivka. Rivka also came from not a good place. Haran, right? Haran, that was the country she came from. Very bad place. And she became the matriarch of the Jewish people. So she deserves the second cup. The third cup represents Rachel, because the third cup is what we say the grace after meal on. And Rachel is the mother of Joseph, who was responsible of sustaining, of taking care of. And the fourth cup is Leah. The matriarch Leah, she was the first one who said what? Thank you, God. She actually called the name Yehuda. Yehuda is the Hebrew word for thank you. Right? So that matriarch Leah, which has expressed the first thank you to God, gets the fourth cup, which is designated to praise and thank God. What do we do with the fourth cup? You say Hallel, right? We thank Hashem, we praise Hashem. So there is where you go. You have the four matriarchs, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. So you made Kiddush on the first cup, then we take out the second matzah, the middle one, and we break it. We break it because we are going to use the bigger part of it assigned for the afikoman. Afikoman is that which we are going to eat at the end of the seder. Just like in Temple's times, the Paschal sacrifice was eaten at the end of the Passover meal. The last thing was, which we call in America, dessert. So what do you get for dessert usually? Ice cream, maroshna, cookies, right? Fruit. Oh, you live in Woodville. Fruit, whatever, Linwood. But in the times of the temple, the dessert was actually the meat of the Paschal sacrifice. That was the last thing we ate. So also at the end of the seder, we are going to actually conclude it by eating a piece of matzah. In addition to the old other matzah you're going to have, we're going to have another piece of matzah called afikoman, which is mainly the end of the seder. And that's what we're doing in the beginning of the seder. When we break it up, the higher piece goes to the afikoman, and the lower part is being left for the meal. But we still need two more matzahs to make the amotzi. Like every holiday, we make a blessing over two complete matzahs. We fill up a second cup of wine after we drank the first cup leaning on our left. And on the second cup, what do we say? The Haggadah. We basically say over the story, and here is a lot to be discussed, but we're going to do some of it on Shabbat. And we already did some of it also the past Shabbat. Very beautiful things into the story of the Exodus, things which are representing everything in the story of our life, and what does it mean to be Jewish? But then comes the mitzvah of the day. You know, there is two biblical commandments that you can perform and you should every night, every year on Passover. Commandment number one, we just spoke about, telling the story. Commandment number two is to eat matzah. Every single Jew, if you like it or not, if it fits you, diet or doesn't, when it comes the night of Passover, you must eat at least part of a matzah. That matzah is the food that we ate when we left Egypt, showing our faith in God. We are ready to run without even preparing sandwiches, like we said earlier. So this is a vitamin of faith. You want to strengthen your faith in God? Everybody needs a little strengthening. Eat matzah. Matzah has the ability, the vitamins to do it. And it's also a field of healing. Because when we came out of Egypt, we did not look good. We needed something to help us to get to Sinai, to look better physically and mentally and emotionally. And being in slavery 200 plus years is a lot of time. And we needed healing. And the matzah was the one food which helped get us to there.
Is there a specific amount, like a whole slice, a round?
In halachic terminology, it's called kazait, the size of an ancient olive. I say an ancient olive because today you have all kinds of olives. So it basically goes to the weight of an olive. What is the weight of an olive? So if you take a matzah like I showed you here, that small matzah, from here to here is basically a kazayat. Eat a little more than half of that. 2/3 of this matzah, you did a mitzvah. It's not a lot. Can you handle it? Can you handle it? You? Yeah. Can handle it. You like matzah? Oh, if you like it, it's good. Some people don't like it. I like matzah. So you eat matzah, and then we have the bitter herbs, and then we have the meal, and we drink a third cup of wine while we recite grace after meal. And then comes the highlight of the evening when we say praises and thanksgiving to God over a fourth cup. Even if you're tired, don't give up. This is the night of the nights. Shouldn't be tired on Pesach night. You can be tired, but don't let yourself get, trapped by the inclination of tiredness. Be up, enjoy it because we really will need it. For the coming year, we're gonna need a lot of vitamins of strength and healing and faith and trust in God, and the matzah does it to us. So Bezrat Hashem, we will continue on Shabbat. This Shabbat is called Shabbat Agadol, the big Shabbat, representing the miracle which took place even before we left Egypt, and the Egyptians were killing each other to make sure that we go. So that's called Shabbat Agadol, and we're going to get ready for Pesach. All those listening on Zoom, this Shabbat, we will not have a lunch kiddush at Eastside Torah Center in preparation for Pesach. So please make all your preparations properly. Not this Shabbat and not next Shabbat. We are going to have a seder over here, Monday night, that everybody's invited to come and join. Please just RSVP so you know we're here. We'll be happy to have you. I know that the young professionals are having their own seder also on Monday night, right? Enjoy everybody, and thank you very much. Happy kosher Passover. Hag Sameach.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're very welcome. How do you?